To understand why finding 99 relatives partying in my Seattle home felt like a knife twisting in my chest, you need to know the family I come from, and the wounds they've left over years. I'm Emily Harris, a 29-year-old medical researcher, and for as long as I can remember, I've been chasing a sense of belonging that always seemed just out of reach. My life revolves around my work at the Seattle Health Institute, where I pour my heart into developing targeted cancer treatments. It's grueling, but it's my passion, my way of making a dent in the universe. 7 years of late nights, endless experiments, and breakthroughs that could save lives. You'd think my family would be proud, right? Not quite. To them, my career's just a fancy hobby, a waste of time compared to my brother Michael's real job selling insurance. Growing up in our modest suburban home in Tacoma, the roles were clear early on. Michael was the golden child, the sun around which our family orbited. I was the quiet overachiever, expected to shine but never celebrated. I'd bring home straight A's, and my report card would get a nod, maybe a spot on the fridge. But when Michael scraped by with B's and C's, my parents threw him a hero's feast. He worked so hard, my mom, Linda, would beam, while my perfect grades were just expected. I still remember one spring evening, I was 14, clutching my first place science fair trophy. I rushed home, thinking maybe this time they'd see me. But the dining room was decked out for Michael's baseball team pizza party. He'd hit a single in a losing game. My trophy sat unnoticed on the counter all night. The pattern never broke. Michael's high school baseball games were family pilgrimages, everyone cheering in the stands. My debate team championships? They'd show up only if nothing else was scheduled. My dad, David, was different, though. Before he passed from heart failure 5 years ago, he'd slip me quiet encouragements, a note tucked in my backpack, a whispered "I'm proud of you" when no one else was around. But in front of Mom or Michael, he stayed silent, like he knew speaking up would stir trouble. After Dad died, the house became a financial anchor for Mom. That's when Michael suggested we buy it together. He and his wife, Sarah, would take the first floor. I'd get the renovated upstairs apartment, and Mom would move into an in-law suite we built in the garage. It sounded perfect, a chance to keep the family home and maybe, just maybe, build a bridge across the emotional chasm between us. I poured my research fellowship savings into the down payment for my half. Michael leaned on Sarah's parents for most of his share. We signed a co-ownership agreement, complete with boundaries my attorney, Jessica Parker, insisted on. Separate spaces, shared responsibilities, no big gatherings without mutual consent. It felt overly formal for family, but I trusted it would keep things fair. For 4 years, it mostly worked. I traveled often for research conferences, presenting findings to top oncologists, while Michael and Sarah turned the first floor into Party Central. Their dinner parties were the talk of the neighborhood, always conveniently scheduled when I was stuck in the lab. I was invited, of course, but it never felt like I belonged. Mom settled into her garage apartment, but she had a habit of dropping by my space unannounced, despite my polite requests for a heads-up text. "I'm your mother, Emily," she'd say, breezing in. "I don't need an appointment to see my daughter." Then she'd rearrange my things, books, papers, even my research notes, to make it more organized. Once, I came home to find my carefully annotated lab data stacked neatly under a pile of her knitting magazines. "It's just clutter, dear," she said when I asked her to stop. "I'm making it homey." I tried to fit in. Sunday dinners when my schedule allowed, holiday gatherings where I'd smile through Michael's endless stories while my own milestones, like my research being published in a top medical journal last Christmas, went unnoticed. No one mentioned it, but Michael's sales award got a standing ovation. Still, I kept showing up, hoping one day they'd see me. 3 months ago, when I learned about the San Francisco workshop, I texted Michael right away, letting him know I'd be gone for a few days. "Can you keep an eye on my space?" I asked. His reply was quick, "No problem. Have a good trip. House will be quiet." Those words haunt me now, a promise so casually broken it makes my blood boil. I trusted him to respect our agreement, to respect me. Instead, he turned my home into a stage for a family reunion I wasn't even invited to. The dismissal of my dreams didn't start with that text, though. It's rooted deeper, in years of being the invisible daughter. I think back to when I was 16, studying late for a national science competition. I'd won a scholarship that could have paid for college, but at dinner, all Mom talked about was Michael's new part-time job at a car dealership. "He's going places," she said, while my award certificate sat untouched on the counter. Dad caught my eye that night, giving me a small nod, but it wasn't enough to erase the sting. That's what it's always been, small moments of being overlooked, piling up until they're a mountain I can't ignore. My work, my sacrifices, my half of this house, they've never mattered as much as Michael's charm or Mom's need to keep him on a pedestal. Co-owning the house was supposed to be a fresh start, a way to hold on to Dad's memory and maybe build something new with Mom and Michael. I used every penny I'd saved from years of scraping by on a researcher's salary. Michael's share came easy, Sarah's parents handed it over like pocket change. We agreed my upstairs apartment was mine, private, off-limits unless I said otherwise. But Michael's parties crept closer to my space, and Mom's organizing felt more like control. I'd come home to find my kitchen towels in her apartment or my office chair downstairs for one of their gatherings. "It's just family," they'd say when I pushed back. But family doesn't mean ignoring boundaries. Family doesn't mean lying to your sister about a quiet weekend while planning to fill her home with 99 strangers. Standing in my doorway that night, staring at that "family is forever" banner, I realized this wasn't just a misunderstanding. It was a betrayal years in the making, built on a foundation of favoritism and disregard. My home, my sanctuary, had been violated, and the people I trusted most were the ones holding the key. But to understand how it got this bad, how my own brother could orchestrate this behind my back, I need to take you to San Francisco, where everything seemed to be falling into place, right before it all fell apart. Walking into my Seattle home that Friday night, expecting the quiet comfort of my own space, I was hit with a scene that turned my world upside down. I'm Emily Harris, a 29-year-old medical researcher, and nothing could have prepared me for what I found: 99 relatives, packed into every corner of my house, throwing a family reunion I wasn't invited to. The "family is forever" banner mocked me from my living room wall, a cruel irony given the betrayal unfolding before my eyes. To understand how this gut punch landed, let me take you back to the days leading up to this moment, when I thought I was on the cusp of a career breakthrough. Just 3 days earlier, I was in San Francisco, presenting my cancer research at a workshop with the Seattle Health Institute. Months of late nights, endless data analysis, and hope had gone into this moment. My targeted treatment approach, designed to shrink aggressive tumors with minimal side effects, was finally getting the attention it deserved. I stood before a room of top oncologists, my voice steady as I shared our preliminary findings. The room buzzed with excitement. Dr. Thompson, a legend in the field, pulled me aside afterward, his eyes bright with possibility. "Emily, your work could change lives," he said, inviting me to discuss collaborations over dinner. My heart soared. This was the validation I'd craved, not just from him, but from a world that often overlooked my grind. I declined the dinner, eager to get home early and decompress before diving back into the lab. I even picked up gifts: a San Francisco snow globe for Mom's collection, craft beer for Michael, chocolate truffles for his wife, Sarah, hoping maybe we could share a rare moment of celebration. How naive I was. My Uber dropped me off a block from home because of the cars clogging my street. At first, I thought a neighbor was hosting a block party. But as I wheeled my suitcase closer, dread crept in. I recognized those vehicles: Uncle Tom's old Chevy, Cousin Rachel's SUV with the soccer stickers, Aunt Laura's hybrid. My pulse quickened. What was going on? The lights in my house blazed, music thumped, laughter echoed. Through the bay window, I glimpsed that banner, its bold letters searing into my brain: "Family is forever." My hand shook as I unlocked the front door, the key feeling foreign in my grip. The noise inside was deafening: conversations overlapping, kids shrieking, a playlist blaring from my speakers. The entryway was a chaotic pile of unfamiliar coats and shoes, like I'd stepped into someone else's life. I stood frozen, suitcase in hand, as the reality hit. My home, my sanctuary, paid for with years of sacrifice, was overrun. Relatives I hadn't seen in years, some I couldn't even name, filled every room. My living room was a sea of faces, aunts and uncles from Tacoma, cousins from Portland, even great-aunt Margaret from Nevada. They were eating off my plates, drinking from my glasses, acting like they owned the place. My coffee table, where I'd spent countless nights poring over research, was buried under chips and dip. My carefully organized books on cancer biology were shoved aside, replaced by photo albums I'd never seen. Kids I didn't know were sprawled on my couch, playing video games on my TV, their sticky fingers smudging the screen. One boy, maybe 7, had spilled juice on my research notes, the pages now a soggy, stained mess. I wanted to scream, but my voice caught in my throat. Then I saw it, a massive Carter family tree poster, meticulously drawn, propped up on my dining table. Gold highlights marked certain branches, but my name? Nowhere to be found. It was like I'd been erased from my own family's story. My eyes stung, but I blinked back the tears. That's when cousin Lisa spotted me. "Emily?" She gasped, her wine glass freezing mid-sip. The room seemed to hold its breath. Conversations faltered, heads turned, and suddenly I was the intruder in my own home. I scanned the crowd, spotting faces I hadn't seen since Dad's funeral 5 years ago. Aunt Susan was dishing out food from my kitchen, using my specialty cookware I'd asked no one to touch. Uncle Greg was showing off my patio to a group of cousins, like he was the host. And there, in the dining room, was Mom, holding court, laughing until our eyes met. Her smile vanished, replaced by a flicker of shock she quickly masked. Michael emerged from the kitchen, a tray of drinks in hand. When he saw me, his face went pale, the tray nearly slipping. Sarah appeared beside him, whispering something that made his jaw tighten. I stood there, rooted, as the weight of their deception settled in. This wasn't a spontaneous gathering. It had been planned, months in the making, I'd later learn. Flights booked, invitations sent, all while I was in the dark. I thought back to Michael's text, "House will be quiet." A lie so blatant it burned. I'd trusted him to watch my space, to respect the boundaries we'd set when we co-owned this house. Instead, he'd turned it into a stage for his perfect family act. As I moved through the crowd, trying to process the violation, I overheard snippets that made my blood run cold. Cousin Jake mentioned booking his flight 6 months ago. Aunt Laura thanked me for letting them use my space, something I'd never agreed to. And then, the worst blow, I caught Michael's voice, low but clear, talking to Uncle Tom near the staircase. "This house will be all mine soon," he said, a smug edge to his tone. "Emily's always gone. She won't even notice." My heart pounded. Was this the real plan? To push me out, to take my half of the home I'd poured my life savings into? The home I'd fought to keep after Dad died, thinking it could hold us together? I climbed the stairs to my upstairs apartment, my private sanctuary, hoping for a moment to breathe. But the door was unlocked. Inside, my space was unrecognizable. Air mattresses littered my office floor, suitcases were stacked in corners, my bed was rumpled with unfamiliar sheets. Someone had taped kids' drawings over my framed research awards, like my achievements were disposable. I stood in the center of my violated world, the noise of the party below seeping through the floorboards. This wasn't just about a party. It was about disrespect, about erasure, about a family that saw my home, my life, as theirs to claim. I needed answers. Why had they done this, and how far did their deception go? To find out, I'd have to face them, and what I uncovered would change everything. Standing in my violated Seattle apartment, surrounded by the chaos of a family reunion I wasn't invited to, I felt the ground shift beneath me. I'm Emily Harris, a 29-year-old medical researcher, and the family is forever banner downstairs was a lie. My home, my sanctuary, had been turned into a stage for 99 relatives, orchestrated by my own brother, Michael, and my mother, Linda, without a word to me. Their text messages, Michael's promise of a quiet house while I was away in San Francisco, burned in my mind. I needed answers. Why had they done this? What were they hiding? So, I steeled myself and called them upstairs to my apartment, where the truth would unravel in ways I never expected. Michael was the first to appear in my doorway, his face a mix of guilt and defiance. Sarah, his wife, hovered behind him, her arms crossed, while Mom slipped in without knocking, as if my space was still hers to claim. The air was thick with tension, the muffled noise of the party below a constant reminder of the betrayal. I sat on the edge of my bed, the sheets still smelling of someone else's perfume, and stared at them. "Explain," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. Michael shifted uncomfortably, running a hand through his hair. "Look, Emily, I can explain," he started, his words sounding rehearsed. "This reunion's been in the works for a while. We thought, well, Mom, Sarah, and I thought, with you in San Francisco, the timing was perfect." "Perfect for what?" I cut in, my eyes narrowing. "For using my home without telling me? For letting strangers sleep in my bed, go through my things?" Michael's jaw tightened. "They're not strangers, they're family," he snapped, his tone slipping into that condescending edge I knew too well. "And this isn't just your home. I co-own it, remember?" I leaned forward, my voice low but sharp. "My apartment is my private space, Michael. We agreed on that when we bought this house. No events without both of us signing off." "You lied to me." He opened his mouth to argue, but Mom jumped in, waving a hand dismissively. "It was a last-minute decision, Emily. We knew you were busy with your work thing. We didn't want to bother you." "Last minute?" I raised an eyebrow, my pulse racing. "Cousin Jake told me he booked his flight 6 months ago. Aunt Laura's been sleeping in my bed for 3 days. This wasn't last minute." Mom's face flashed with irritation, but she doubled down. "We didn't want to stress you out. You're always wrapped up in your research." I turned to Michael, my voice colder now. "You told me to book my return flight for Saturday. You said nothing was happening here." He looked away, his silence louder than any excuse. Sarah stepped forward, her arms still crossed. "We didn't think you'd want to be here anyway. You're always working, always on your laptop during family events. So we planned it when you'd be gone." The pieces were falling into place, and they weren't pretty. "So, you deliberately scheduled this behind my back, lied about the dates, and hoped I wouldn't find out?" I asked, my voice trembling with a mix of hurt and rage. Michael's quick of course not felt hollow. "We were going to clean up before you got back," he added, but Mom's next words cut deeper. "You're taking this too personally, Emily. It's not like you're ever here for family. You've never cared about the extended relatives." The hypocrisy stung. "Maybe because I'm never included," I shot back. "I didn't even know Cousin Rachel had a baby until tonight. No one tells me anything." Sarah's eyes narrowed. "When was the last time you called Aunt Laura or visited Uncle Tom? Family's a two-way street." I laughed, a bitter sound. "A two-way street? You've been planning this for months, using my home, my space, and didn't think to send me a single text." The room fell silent, their glances confirming what I'd feared, my exclusion was no accident. Then, a crash from my bathroom shattered the tension. I rushed in to find a young boy, maybe 8, standing amid broken glass, my grandmother's antique perfume bottles, heirlooms from Dad, now shards on the tile. "I was just looking," he mumbled, wide-eyed. I turned back to them, my voice shaking. "This is unacceptable." "It's just stuff, Emily," Mom sighed. "Family matters more." I stared at her, incredulous. "Family? Is that what this is?" I walked to my closet, finding it stuffed with strangers' luggage. Behind me, Michael cleared his throat. "While we're talking, Sarah and I were thinking, since you're hardly here, maybe you'd consider selling your half of the house. We're planning a family, and we could use the space." There it was, the real agenda, laid bare. My mind raced, connecting dots I hadn't seen before. I'd glimpsed a manila folder in Michael's luggage earlier, half hidden under a suitcase. Curiosity had gotten the better of me, and I'd peeked inside. Financial documents, mortgage refinancing attempts, credit card statements with 5-figure balances, a letter about denied loan applications. It all clicked. This reunion wasn't just about family pride. It was a performance, a way to position Michael as the generous host while pressuring me to sell, to bail him out of his money troubles. I faced him, my voice steady but laced with steel. "You're in debt, aren't you? That's what this is about. You need my half of the house to fix your finances." Michael's face flushed red, his fist slamming the table, rattling a glass. "Don't make this something it's not, Emily. This is our home, and we're trying to keep it in the family." Sarah jumped in, her voice sharp. "You're blowing this out of proportion. We just thought, with you always gone, it makes sense." I stepped closer, my eyes locked on Michael's. "I found your papers, Michael. The loans, the debt, the refinancing denials. You planned this reunion to soften me up, didn't you? To make it look like I don't belong here, so I'd hand over my share." The room went still. Mom's mouth opened, then closed, her defensive posture crumbling. Michael's eyes darted to Sarah, who looked away. "You went through my things?" he sputtered, but the guilt in his voice betrayed him. I pressed on. "You used my home to play perfect host, to impress the family, while plotting to take it from me. You let people sleep in my bed, touch my things, break my heirlooms. And you have the nerve to call this family?" Mom tried to recover, her voice softer now. "Emily, we didn't mean to hurt you. We thought you'd be okay with it, since you're so busy." But her words felt like another excuse, another way to dodge accountability. A knock at the door broke the standoff. Cousin Mark poked his head in. "Sorry, guys, people are asking about dinner." Sarah forced a smile. "We'll be down soon." The door closed, and the mask was back on, but I wasn't done. I walked to my dresser, finding drawers ajar, my clothes rearranged. "Who's been going through my stuff?" I demanded. Mom's voice was defensive. "No one's going through anything. We just needed space." "It's fine." But it wasn't fine. Nothing about this was fine. I turned to Michael, my voice low. "I saw a text on Mom's phone earlier, when she left it on the counter. From you. Once she's out, we refinance. Care to explain that?" His face went white, his mouth working soundlessly. Sarah stepped in front of him. "You're twisting everything, Emily. We're just trying to keep this family together." "Together?" I said, my voice breaking. "You've spent years pushing me out, and now you've taken my home to do it. This isn't about family. It's about what you want." The truth hung heavy between us, undeniable now. I could have screamed, could have let the hurt spill over, but something inside me shifted. Rage gave way to clarity. I wasn't going to let them win by losing control. I needed a plan, a way to take back what was mine. To understand how I turned this betrayal into my triumph, you have to see what I did next, and it started with walking away. The air in my Seattle apartment was heavy with betrayal, the echoes of my confrontation with Michael, Mom, and Sarah still ringing in my ears. I'm Emily Harris, a 29-year-old medical researcher, and I'd just uncovered their plan, a family reunion with 99 relatives in my home, orchestrated behind my back to pressure me into selling my half of the house. Michael's financial troubles, his smug "this house will be mine" comment, and that damning text on Mom's phone, "once she's out, we refinance," had laid their motives bare. I could have screamed, could have let the hurt consume me, but standing in my violated space, surrounded by strangers' luggage and broken heirlooms, I made a choice. I wasn't going to fight their way. I was going to fight smarter. This was my power move, and it started with walking away. I grabbed a weekend bag from my closet, my hand steady despite the ache in my chest. I packed essentials, clothes for a few days, toiletries, my laptop, and every important document I could find. As I worked, the sweet, powdery scent of my grandmother's shattered perfume bottles lingered, a painful reminder of what I'd lost. But I wasn't just packing to leave, I was preparing to reclaim control. I pulled out my phone and started documenting everything: the air mattresses cluttering my office floor, the rumpled sheets on my bed, the kids' drawings taped over my research awards, the glass shards glittering in my bathroom. Each photo was timestamped, evidence of the invasion. I moved methodically, channeling my anger into purpose. This wasn't just about hurt feelings. This was about my rights, my home, my half of the deed I'd poured my life's savings into. As I zipped my bag, a soft knock broke my focus. It was Aunt Clara, my dad's older sister, one of the few relatives who'd ever truly seen me. At 78, she stood tall, her eyes clear and kind. "I thought you'd be up here," she said, her voice low, carrying the weight of understanding. I let her in, and she settled on the edge of my bed, surveying the chaos. "I had no idea you weren't told about this reunion," she said. "When Linda and Michael sent the invitations, I asked if you were involved. They swore you'd given your blessing, said you were too busy with work." I shook my head, the sting of their lie cutting deeper. "This is the first I've heard of it," I said, my voice tight. Clara sighed, her face etched with disappointment. "I suspected as much when I saw you downstairs. Your father would be furious." The mention of Dad brought a lump to my throat. I thought of his quiet encouragements, the notes he'd slipped me before he passed 5 years ago. "They've been sleeping in my bed, Clara," I said, my voice cracking. "Going through my things. Michael just asked me to sell my half of the house." Her eyebrows shot up. "Did he now? Interesting timing." She glanced at the door, then leaned closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "I overheard Michael and Sarah last night, talking with their financial advisor in the kitchen. Old ears hear more than people think. They're in deep, Emily, investment properties tanking, credit card debt piling up. This reunion? It feels like a show, a way to play the perfect hosts while nudging you out." Her words confirmed what I'd glimpsed in Michael's financial documents: the denied loans, the maxed out credit cards. This wasn't just about family pride, it was about money. "I need to step away to think clearly," I told her. "Please don't tell anyone I'm packing." Clara nodded, then reached into her pocket, pulling out a small velvet pouch. "I brought this for you," she said. "Meant for the family gift exchange tomorrow, but you need it now." Inside was a gold locket. I opened it to find a tiny photo of Dad and me at my medical school graduation, his face glowing with pride. "He sent me that picture the day after," Clara said. "Said it was the proudest moment of his life, watching you take that diploma. He knew you'd do big things." I clutched the locket, tears threatening but held back. I saw Dad's face in my mind, his voice clear as day: "You'll change the world, Emily." That memory, his belief in me, was a lifeline. "Thank you," I whispered. Clara stood, her hand on my shoulder. "Whatever you do, remember your father saw your worth, even when others didn't. Don't let them dim your light." After she left, I finished packing, my resolve hardening. I sent a text to my best friend, Lauren: "Family emergency. Can I call you tonight?" Her reply was instant: "Of course." "What's happening?" I didn't answer yet. I needed space first. I shouldered my bag and slipped downstairs, weaving through clusters of relatives too caught up in their laughter to notice me. In the kitchen, Sarah was directing aunts to prepare dinner, using my specialty cookware I'd begged them not to touch. "Emily, there you are," she said, her smile forced. "Can you grab more chairs from the basement?" I kept my voice neutral. "I've got urgent work emails to handle. I'm stepping out for a bit." Her relief was obvious, poorly hidden. "Oh, sure. We've got this under control." As I headed for the door, I overheard my cousin Mark asking Michael about neighborhood property values. Michael's reply stopped me cold: "Fantastic investment opportunity. Once the paperwork's done, we'll have the whole house and renovate your sister's floor our way." His confidence, like my agreement was a done deal, lit a fire in me. I walked to my car, the sounds of their celebration fading. Michael's plan was clear: erase me from the house, from the family narrative. But he'd underestimated me. I drove to a downtown hotel, the quiet lobby a stark contrast to the chaos I'd left. The receptionist's question, business or pleasure, caught me off guard. Neither, I said. Just creating some distance. In my room, I spread out the photos I'd taken, my evidence of their violation. I called Lauren, pouring out the story as she listened in stunned silence. Stay with us, she urged, but I'd already booked the hotel. I needed solitude to plan. By midnight, my retreat had become a counteroffensive. I emailed my attorney, Jessica Parker, attaching the photos and outlining the betrayal. Jessica called back within the hour. This is a clear violation of your co-ownership agreement, she said. You've got options: force a sale or lease your portion to retain control. Bring everything to my office tomorrow. I made lists, researched legal steps, and felt a shift inside me. This wasn't just about the house. It was about my worth. Then, my phone pinged with a game changer. Dr. Thompson, the oncologist from San Francisco, had emailed, "Based on your presentation, I've recommended you for a 3-year research position in Geneva with the Global Health Research Institute. They want to talk this week. Your work could save millions." I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. Switzerland. A chance to lead cutting-edge cancer research, to build a life on my terms. The timing was almost too perfect. Michael's texts started flooding in, demanding to know where I was. I ignored them, responding only to Clara, "I'm safe. Thank you for the locket." As I lay in the hotel bed, the locket in my hand, I made a final note: family means forever, but so do consequences. I was done being invisible. To see how I turned this betrayal into my greatest triumph, you need to know what happened when I took my next step, and it started with a plane ticket. Leaving my Seattle home behind, with the sting of betrayal still fresh, I stepped into a new chapter that would redefine everything I thought I knew about family and self-worth. I'm Emily Harris, a 29-year-old medical researcher, and after discovering my brother Michael and mother Linda had hosted 99 relatives in my house without my consent, I made a choice. I didn't just walk away from their deception, I walked toward a future I could control. With my attorney's guidance and a life-changing offer from the Global Health Research Institute in Geneva, I leased my half of the house to a property management company and boarded a plane to Switzerland. But starting over didn't mean the conflict ended. It meant facing new battles from 3,700 miles away, and learning what it truly means to stand your ground. Geneva was a revelation. The Global Health Research Institute was a world apart from the cramped labs I'd known in Seattle. State-of-the-art facilities, endless resources, and a team of brilliant minds from every corner of the globe, it was like stepping into a dream. My days filled with purpose, refining my targeted cancer treatments alongside colleagues who didn't just respect my work but celebrated it. Dr. Patel, a biochemist from Kenya, stopped me after our first team meeting. "Your approach to receptor modification is groundbreaking, Emily," he said, his enthusiasm infectious. "I've been following your papers since your Journal of Experimental Oncology piece." Dr. Chun, our imaging specialist, chimed in, eager to dive into my methodology. For the first time, I was surrounded by people who saw me, not as the invisible sister or the workaholic daughter, but as a contributor, a peer, a force. After years of fighting for scraps of recognition at home, this acceptance was almost disorienting, like sunlight after a long storm. Outside the lab, Geneva became my playground. I'd hike the Alps on weekends, the crisp mountain air clearing the weight of betrayal from my lungs. One afternoon, standing on a ridge overlooking snow-capped peaks, I felt something I hadn't in years: freedom. Not just from Michael and Mom, but from the need to prove myself to them. I was building a life on my terms, and it was exhilarating. But back in Seattle, the drama I'd left behind wasn't ready to let go. My phone buzzed constantly with texts and voicemails, mostly from Michael, each one a mix of anger and manipulation. "Where are you? Emily. Mom's worried sick, he'd write, as if I were the one who'd broken trust. You're embarrassing us in front of the family, Sarah texted, her words dripping with blame. Mom's messages were a masterclass in guilt. This is childish, Emily. My blood pressure's through the roof because of you. I stuck to my plan, responding only in writing, keeping every exchange factual and distant. No emotional traps, no room for their spin. The property management company I'd hired became my shield. They secured a tenant, a visiting UCLA professor with impeccable references, within weeks. Michael tried to block the move, even showing up to argue with the manager, but retreated when Jessica Parker, my attorney, outlined the legal consequences. The first month's rent hit my account, minus fees and repair costs for the reunion's damage, crayon marks on my desk, juice stains on my books, glass shards from my grandmother's heirlooms still embedded in the bathroom tiles. Jessica's updates kept me grounded. Your mother's complaining about the tenant using the shared laundry, she wrote. We've set a schedule. Then, Michael's hired a lawyer to challenge the lease. It's baseless, but expect more noise. I saved every message, every voicemail, building a paper trail as solid as the Alps. Michael's tactics shifted over time. His rage gave way to guilt trips. The tenant's weird, keeps odd hours, he texted. Mom feels unsafe in her own home. Dad would have hated seeing us like this. I didn't bite. But one evening, 6 weeks after I'd settled in Geneva, a different kind of message came. It was an email from Michael, sent from Dad's old study. I'm here fixing a plumbing issue, he wrote. The house feels empty without you. I keep expecting to hear you typing upstairs or grabbing coffee. I won't apologize over email, that's for face-to-face, but I've been thinking about how things have always been between us. Mom says you abandoned us, but sitting here, I'm wondering if we abandoned you first, long before you left. Sarah's pregnant. It's got me thinking about what kind of father I want to be, what kind of family we're building. No answers yet, just questions I should have asked sooner. By the way, your research made the news. Mom cut out the article. She denies it, but it's on the fridge. I read it again, stunned by its rawness. It wasn't an apology, but it was something, a crack in the armor of denial. I waited a day, then replied, congrats on the baby. My clinical trials are showing promise, 78% tumor reduction, minimal side effects. It could change cancer treatment. I'm not ready to act like everything's fine, but I appreciate your email. This house was your dream, not mine. My work is my home now, surrounded by people who value me. Tell Mom I'm glad she kept the article. It wasn't warm, but it was honest, a step toward communication rooted in reality, not manipulation. Mom's messages evolved too, cycling through anger to tentative reflection. I've never been so humiliated, she wrote. Everyone's asking where you are. Then, my doctor's on me about stress. Why couldn't you just talk to us? Finally, a shift, maybe we should have told you about the reunion. It was the first hint of accountability, fragile but real. I responded simply, yes, you should have. It opened a door, not to reconciliation, but to something new. We didn't think you'd care, she wrote back. You've always kept yourself apart. I countered, I was never invited to most gatherings. And my home was used without consent. Days later, she replied, I'm trying to understand your perspective. It wasn't an apology, but it was progress, a small step toward truth. In Geneva, my life blossomed. My research team became my family, celebrating breakthroughs and supporting each other through setbacks. We'd share dinners by Lake Geneva, swap stories, and build bonds that felt more authentic than anything I'd known back home. My friend Lauren visited, marveling at my transformation. You're lighter, she said as we walked along the lake. Like you've shed something heavy. I nodded. Expectations, maybe. The weight of trying to belong where I was never wanted. She smiled. Family's the people who see you, not the ones who make you invisible. Back in Seattle, the practicality stabilized. The tenant was reliable, the management company efficient. Michael's legal stabs fizzled when their lack of merit became clear. 6 months in, I felt a peace I hadn't known possible. But a year after that chaotic night, I'd returned to Seattle, not for them, but for a conference, and for a chance to see if the cracks in their armor had widened. To understand how that reunion changed us all, you need to hear about the dinner that awaited me, and the new kind of family we tried to build. A year after walking away from the chaos of 99 relatives invading my Seattle home, I returned, not to reclaim what I'd lost, but to see if the family I'd left behind could find a new way to connect. I'm Emily Harris, a 29-year-old medical researcher, now thriving in Geneva, where my work on cancer treatments is saving lives. The betrayal orchestrated by my brother Michael and mother Linda, using my house for a reunion without my consent, had pushed me to lease my half of the property and start over in Switzerland. Their messages, once laced with anger and guilt, had softened into reflection, hinting at accountability. When a research conference brought me back to Seattle, I agreed to meet Michael, his wife Sarah, their newborn daughter Ava, and Mom for dinner. What unfolded wasn't a fairy tale reunion, but a fragile step towards something real. The restaurant was a quiet Italian place downtown, its warm lighting a stark contrast to the storm inside me. I arrived early, my nerves buzzing as I smoothed my dress. Michael walked in first, pushing Ava's stroller, Sarah at his side. Mom trailed behind, looking older, her eyes softer than I remembered. We exchanged awkward hellos, the weight of the past year hanging between us. As we sat, the conversation tiptoed around landmines, my departure, the reunion, the leased apartment. Michael broke the ice, his voice cautious. Your research made the news again, Emily. They're saying your treatment could save thousands. I nodded, surprised by the acknowledgement. If the expanded trials hold, yeah. It's early, but the data's promising. Sarah smiled faintly. That's incredible. The praise felt foreign, like a language we were all learning to speak. But the tension lingered. Mom fidgeted with her napkin, her silence heavy. Michael steered the talk to Ava, proudly showing photos on his phone. She's got Dad's stubborn streak, he said, and something in me softened. When he handed Ava to me, her tiny fingers curled around mine, and I felt a jolt of connection. Her eyes, a deep brown, were Dad's eyes, the ones that had always seen me. I glanced at Mom, whose gaze was fixed on Ava, glistening with unshed tears. James would have adored her, she said quietly. I nodded, my throat tight. He would have. Michael leaned forward, his voice earnest. He'd be proud of you, too, Emily. That article, it's a big deal. For the first time, I felt warmth in his words, a crack in the wall we'd built. The talk wasn't all smooth. Old habits crept in, Mom's passive comments about my sudden move, Sarah's quick defense of Michael's hosting the reunion. I kept my responses measured, refusing to be pulled back into their narrative. But when Mom hesitated before we left, her voice low, I sensed a shift. Will you visit again before you fly back to Switzerland? She asked. I paused, weighing the question. I've got meetings for 3 days, but maybe breakfast Sunday before my flight. Her relief was palpable, a small victory in a battle neither of us fully understood. We didn't hug goodbye, we weren't there yet, but our eyes met, a silent acknowledgement of something new, something honest. Before returning to Geneva, I made one more stop. At Dad's grave, the morning air was crisp, the cemetery quiet. I knelt, tracing his name on the stone, the locket from Aunt Clara warm against my chest. I did it, Dad, I whispered, thinking of his voice at my graduation, you'll change the world. The scholarship I'd funded in his name, using proceeds from selling my half of the house, would help young researchers like me. I'd finalized the sale to Michael at market value, with conditions. Mom's garage apartment was secured for her lifetime, and the funds would support my work and Dad's legacy. The house, once a symbol of family and pain, was no longer mine, but what I'd built in its place, freedom, purpose, respect, meant more. The sale hadn't been easy. In Geneva, I'd weighed Michael's offer with my research team, now my chosen family. Lucia, a neurologist from Brazil, had asked, "What does selling mean to you?" I'd answered, "Financial security. Freedom from a fight that still takes energy." But Dr. Patel, a confidant, pressed deeper. "Does it feel like erasing yourself from their story?" I admitted it did, like confirming I never belonged. Mark, a Swiss colleague, offered perspective. "Maybe it's writing your story elsewhere, and that's enough." Their words guided me to accept the offer, not out of defeat, but clarity. The paperwork was clean, the funds transferred, and with them, a weight lifted. Sitting in my hotel room that night, I reflected on the dinner. It wasn't perfect, awkward silences, careful words, but it was real. Michael's pride in my work, Mom's tentative olive branch, Ava's tiny hand in mine, they were threads of a new fabric, not the suffocating blanket of family is forever. I'd spent years chasing their approval, only to find my worth in Geneva, in labs, and friendships that saw me clearly. The pain of their betrayal hadn't vanished, but it had transformed into wisdom, a map for boundaries I'd never unlearn. I thought of Dad, his quiet belief in me, and how he'd smile seeing Ava's eyes, my trials, this fragile bridge we were building. Family wasn't about obligation or shared walls, it was about mutual respect, earned through accountability. I'd sold the house, but kept something more, a sense of self no one could take. As I prepared to fly back to Geneva, I wondered what this new chapter held, not just for me, but for the family I was redefining. To understand the lessons that carried me forward, you need to hear what I learned from this journey, and how it changed the way I see the world. Looking back on the night, I found 99 relatives in my Seattle home, uninvited and orchestrated by those I trusted most. I see more than betrayal. I'm Emily Harris, a 29-year-old medical researcher, and that moment was a turning point, a painful but powerful lesson in who I am and what I deserve. The family is forever banner promised one thing, but my journey taught me another. Family isn't about blind loyalty or shared blood. It's about mutual respect, built on trust and accountability. When my brother Michael and mother Linda violated my home, they expected me to stay silent, to shrink as I always had. Instead, I chose myself, leasing my half of the house, moving to Geneva, and pouring my heart into cancer research that's now saving lives. The hardest boundaries to set are often with those who should love us most. I learned to draw those lines, not out of spite, but self-worth. Selling my share of the house wasn't giving up, it was letting go of a place that no longer defined me. The scholarship I funded in my father's name, the trials advancing in Switzerland, the dinner with Michael, Sarah, Ava, and Mom, those were my victories, proof that pain can forge strength. Family doesn't have to mean forever in the way they meant it. It can mean choosing who lifts you up, who sees you clearly, whether they're relatives or the colleagues who became my home in Geneva. Don't let betrayal define you. Set boundaries, protect your value, and chase what makes you whole. My research is changing lives, but my greatest triumph was realizing I didn't need their approval to shine. I found my worth in the work I do, the people who value it, and the courage to walk away from what hurt me. You deserve that, too, to be seen, respected, no matter what any banner says. Have you ever had to redefine family? Maybe you've set a boundary with someone who should have loved you better. Share your story in the comments below. Your voice matters, and I'd love to hear how you found your strength. This journey showed me that the bonds were born in to shape us, but they don't have to chain us. Sometimes, the bravest thing is to rewrite your story, to choose a family that honors who you are. If this resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories of resilience and empowerment. Click the bell so you never miss an update. Let's keep this conversation going, because you're not alone, and your worth is worth fighting for. Thank you for listening, for being part of this journey. Here's to building lives that reflect our truest selves, one courageous step at a time.